Hello and welcome to the Herdline Podcast, hosted by Trace Johnson and the Herds Headset. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode where the Headset and Trace talk all things Marshall athletics. Be sure to follow us on X and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Now, sit back, relax, and let's talk the herd.
Welcome back to the Herdline Podcast. We're ready for episode 6, and it's going to be a very fun episode. Looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this since we thought of it last couple of weeks, whenever we thought of it. And it's going to be football-centric, football-related, and we've already done a kind of fun episode with the whole $15 challenge for basketball. This was going to be kind of similar to that, except this time we're not doing any kind of $15 bracket, anything like that. We're just doing our own personal top 10 Marshall football games that we've ever been to. Now, this does not include, obviously, games we haven't been to. This has nothing to do with just the best games. This is just the best games that we have been to personally as Trace and the Herds Headset. That's what it comes down to. We missed out on, obviously, a whole generation, a whole plethora of amazing games from the past. I wasn't there in 92. I wasn't there in 96. Wasn't there, that I wasn't there. But for the games that we've been at, they're not chopped liver either. So I think we're going to have a really awesome list. I'm looking forward to hearing both of our perspectives on this. But before we get into that, man, what's been going on lately for you?
Nothing much, man. We're just, I guess you could say, keeping on, the daily grind, brand new year, and excited, like you said, to get into this list and talk about some exciting games that I've been able to be at. And we were talking a little bit before we got on air today, and I've been to tons of Marshall games, but the problem that I've got is that some of them I don't remember because I was so young whenever I went to them. I remember that my dad would take me to games, and because I was so little and my attention span was not so vast, that he would end up taking me home at halftime, then come right back and watch the end of the game. So, I'm sure that I've seen even greater games that maybe it should be on this list, but for whatever reason, I just don't remember. I have recollection of certain players like Byron Leftwich. That was my guy. I mean, he was my favorite player, first person that I really, really remember in Marshall. But overall, I hope everybody doesn't get too mad at us because we've not been able to see some of those instant classic games or remember them as other fans that are a little bit more seasoned would. But like you said, I'm excited to hear your list and compare it to my list, and it should be a good episode overall.
Absolutely. And this is just kind of fun stuff, and I love doing it. I know you're the same way. We love this kind of stuff. And, it is unfortunate that we weren't able to be at those games, but what can we do? We were born when we were born, so, but, and I wasn't going to mention this game just for the sake of the fact that I wasn't actually there, but I feel like in a way I almost was kind of there. So it's like one of my fondest memories is the 0-2 MAC title game when we beat Toledo there at the end with Leftwich and all that. That was I vividly remember, watching that at my grandparents' house with my parents and my grandparents. And that was almost as good as or better as if I would have been there. I mean, that was just an amazing moment. That's one of the earliest games that I have that vivid of a memory of. But so I figured I would just say that real quick, just because it was such a special moment for me. But so we'll go ahead and start. I don't know if you have any honorable mentions or not. And I also wanted to say that towards the end of this episode, we'll probably touch on a little transfer portal news because, of course, it's just always moving. So we figure we'd get into a little bit of that. But I don't know if you've got any honorable mentions or not. But if you do have any honorable mentions, you can mention them. Or if not, you can go ahead and start with number 10.
Yeah, so I don't have one particular honorable mention because I think the way that my list has been compiled is I've got 10 games that I can think back to and that there was a special moment. I got a special memory. I really enjoyed something overall that went on in that game. And then everything else is kind of interchangeable in ways. It may not have been the most exciting opponents but no matter what game that we go to and we try and rank these type of things, Marshall football is always a good time. So I don't necessarily have a honorable mention per se, but I will begin the list with this. So I'm going to do it with a loss. And I got a couple of losses on here. And again, if you can get mad at me all that you want to as you're listening, that's completely okay. But this is my list. And so coming in at number 10 is a game that just took place a couple of years ago on October the 7th, 2023. It was a Saturday afternoon in Raleigh, North Carolina, when Marshall traveled to NC State. And I can remember that both my dad and I were able to go to that game. I was living in North Carolina at the time. And, I had no expectations really for this game. Marshall had kind of started off the season shaky, kind of going back and forth. 2023 was not the greatest of years for Marshall football, if you can recall.
Yeah.
However, I think that they had won a couple in a row. So, you went into that game thinking, well, I'm not expecting much, but you just never know. And I can remember that really early on, there was a couple of turnovers that NC State had, and we were sitting up in the Marshall section. The place was going crazy. It was a sold out game as well, and it was just a really great atmosphere. But then, as the game progressed forward and different things took place, NC State kind of woke up, and they just picked Marshall apart there at the end, and Marshall ended up losing a close one at 48-41. And this was back whenever Cam Fancher was under center for Marshall. And I can remember going out of that game thinking, like, man, we not a bad quarterback. He had a good game
Yeah.
overall and made some mistakes and different things down the stretch. But still, it's crazy how much can change in just a couple of games. But overall, I had a great time with my dad on that day. Just looking back and really being able to enjoy that kind of moment. So I've got a great atmosphere. NC State on the road, barely edging us out at 48-41 at my number 10 spot.
I remember that game well. That was a great game. And, we really came out strong. Actually led at the half in that game. And then NC State kind of just took over a little bit there in the second half, but we only lost by 7. It was a really good performance. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that was one of my ultimate things I had to go through in my own head during this list is, do I put any losses on this list? I did not put any losses on this list. So I guess in a way, those are almost going to be other honorable mentions. WVU 07, WVU 2010, Virginia Tech 2011, numerous games like that. Louisville 2016, I was at those games. I didn't put those on the list. And, that you could have made the argument for all of them just because the atmospheres were outstanding. But I just went with all wins. That's just the sucker in me. I don't know. But so my honorable mentions, I put 3 games on here because I think these are really 3 solid games. I won't get too deep into them. But so the first one I put on here was the East Carolina win in 2007. That's probably a pretty obscure one for most people. We won 26-7. That was a year we were not very good at all. 3-9. We struggled mightily on the struggle bus that year, bad. But ECU at that point of the season, towards the end of the year, they were controlling their own championship destiny in the East Division of Conference USA. They had Chris Johnson. Remember Chris Johnson, what the stud he was. They had a lot of good players, and we really took it to them. And that was probably the best, arguably the best win of the whole Mark Snyder era. That was a phenomenal win. Loved that game. And then another game I put on here was Ohio in 2019. We won, I think it was 33-31. Really exciting game. It was back and forth, just like you would expect the battle for the belt to be. That was a really, really good win. Anytime you play Ohio and beat them, that's a great win. But this one was more memorable than most because of how close it was, and it was a really competitive game. So that was awesome. And then I also put another one on here, Houston in 2012, whenever Justin Haig, I believe it was still Justin Haig, hit a walk-off almost. I don't know if it was a walk-off, but it was a game-winning field goal at the very last couple seconds. And it was 44-41, I believe. Really high-scoring game. That was when we had Cato as a sophomore. He broke out like gangbusters, but we had no defense. So it was a great, great win, but we did not win enough of the games that year, but that was a really great win. So looking at my number 10, officially my number 10, this was one that isn't going to be one that most people remember, but I just remember it because I had a ton of fun at this game. At Cincinnati in 2017, we beat them 38-21. Really took it to them from the start. I mean, we were up 24-0. And I remember Marshall went into that game as an underdog, slight road underdog. And, Cincinnati in the AAC at the time, Power 6, Power whatever, how they kept saying that. And everybody thought Cincinnati would win, and Marshall took it to them really well. Chase Litton had one of probably his best games ever at Marshall, I would say, during that particular game. Ryan Yurchek had a huge game. I remember a lot of guys had big games, and there was a ton of green in that crowd. And that was Cincinnati. They still had Luke Fickell at that time but that's before he really got him going. In the next couple of years, obviously, we know what they ended up doing. But this was like the start of the Fickell era with them, and we really took it to them. And that was a very impressive win that year. That was probably the first game in which you thought, okay, this team could make some noise. And they made a little bit of noise, but unfortunately they lost too many close games. But that was a great win right there. So that's who I went with number 10.
Yeah, that's a tremendous pick, and I really wish I could have gone to that game. That definitely have been on my list if I was
Yeah.
there. I do remember watching that one, and I remember Chase Litton in the stands after the game. That's a vivid memory that I've got
Yeah.
of that one. And like you said a second ago, I guess you could mention I didn't go to a lot of the games that I can remember vividly in my mind. But as far as just those types of stuff, those games, it's always nice to have those memories. But yeah, Cincinnati, great pick overall. I'll go ahead and give you my number 9. That is the 2022 Myrtle Beach Bowl win against UConn, and Marshall ended up winning 28-14. And this also was the return, really the comeback return, I guess you could say, of Rasheen Ali as he won the MVP that day. And it was just a great time. I've been to 2 bowl games in my entire life of Marshall, and I'll mention the other one a little bit later on in the episode. That's going to be higher up on the list, but this was a tremendous memory. 2022 was a pretty good year. Overall, not bad whatsoever, and getting a bowl win very close by in basically West Virginia 2.0. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can't really ask for much more than that. And again, interesting note about that game as well. Zion Turner, now our backup quarterback, was
Mm-hmm.
the starting quarterback for UConn at the time. So overall, really cool game. Like I said, I've only been to 2 bowl games in my entire life, and so this was a special one, and it's one that I definitely will not forget. And again, myself and my dad were able to go together to that one, which makes it even more cool. So great memory, great game, and we came back home as Myrtle Beach Bowl champions.
I was going to say that is definitely on my list as well, a little bit higher, but that was an awesome game, phenomenal moment right there for me personally, you personally, but that was a really good win for the team. So that was an awesome game, and that will be on my list shortly. I'll just give you a little teaser. But so looking at number 9 now, this is actually a game from this past season, Texas State. They double overtime. Really crazy game. I mean, I don't really remember many games in recent years that made me that like amped. I don't know if that's the right word or not, but like I was extremely nervous, like more edge of my seat than probably any game in a while. That was a really great win. It was exciting as all get, I mean, 40-37 double overtime. We were down pretty much the whole game, most of the whole game, and then ended up tying it. Well, ended up taking the lead there in the last minute or so. But then, of course, they went down, kicked the field goal, tied it up. And then we just kept battling it out in overtime, and we just managed to pull out on top, held them to a field goal. Then we punched it in the end zone with Joe Sean Barbie. And that was a great win. Would have liked to have seen another win or two in this season. That way, we would have went to a bowl game, but that's a whole other separate can of worms. But I mean, this game itself was awesome, sensational game. I mean, one that's very memorable. And maybe it's a little recency bias too, just because it was just this past season. But I mean, even if you look down the road, a couple years down the road, this game's probably still going to be, thought about really highly because of how exciting it was. So that's my number 9.
Yeah, can't get much better than something along those lines, especially with it being homecoming, great crowd,
Yeah.
and that was definitely a very exciting game. Going on to my number 8, this is again another loss, and again I've got a couple of losses on here, but this is my list, and this is just stuff that I remember very vividly. And this game in particular was the most electrifying 5 minutes, I think, maybe in Jones C. Edwards history, and that is 2016 versus Louisville. Stripe the
Yeah.
stadium, night game. ESPN is in town. The future Heisman Trophy winner Lamar Jackson is in town, and I was a student. I was a freshman at Marshall, and I can remember lining up and getting in first dibs, getting some of those T-shirts that they had placed out on the stands and different things. I mean, and I was in the student section. That place, I had never heard the Joan quite like that, other than one other occasion that I'll mention earlier or later on. And it was just unbelievable. We stopped them 3 and out the first drive. I can remember that just like it was yesterday. And I was so excited that we stopped them. I was like, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
amazing. But then after that, the Heisman Trophy portion of Lamar Jackson kind of kicked in, and everything else was not necessarily as fun the rest of the night as we lost 59-28. And the 28, I think, was more garbage time points than anything else.
It was.
Garrett Morrell was the starting quarterback for Chase Litton, who got a concussion, I believe, against Akron the game before.
Yep.
And I had class with Garrett Morrell, and then, obviously Garrett just got thrown out there to the wolves and different things. And he did not show up to class on Monday. Funny, funny, believe that or not, funny as that may be. But it was still, I'll never forget that game. As I don't think that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, or we can look it up later. I don't believe there was anybody that was ranked higher than Louisville that's ever come to the Joan than that particular game. So yeah, that's just a fond memory, even with the loss, because of how excited
Yeah.
everybody was for that game. And then, just in hindsight, I got to see a Heisman Trophy winner, not just candidate, but a winner, and so
Right.
that's pretty cool stuff. And he went on to become an NFL MVP and do great things. So just a cool game overall, and it was the first game that I can ever remember as a student where it was just wild. So yeah, that's at my number 8 spot.
That was a sensational, like you said, quarter and a half. With that environment the way it was. Oh my gosh, it was electric. I mean, it was crazy. And I still look back fondly on that one, even with the blowout loss. I still look back fondly just because it was the experience of that whole thing. Having they were number 3 in the country at that time, and that ties the highest ranked team that's ever played there. WVU in '07 with Pat White and Steve Slayton, they were third, but Louisville was third, and they had Lamar Jackson during the season in which he won the Heisman, and they had just come off of a slaughtering of Florida State the week before. And that was electric. And the fact Chase Hancock sacking Lamar Jackson on that first drive on third down, oh man, I was very, very excited about that. But yeah, that was a phenomenal moment despite the loss. But so I'm gonna move on to number 8 here on my list. This one, very fond game for me. And we're talking about the Western Kentucky game in 2019, aka the Justin Rohrwasser just beast of a game. I mean, I don't have to say anymore. I mean, it was a great. I mean, the Moonshine Throwdown was a phenomenal rivalry for several years there in the Conference USA, and it really grew to be way bigger than anybody thought it was going to be. And this game was kind of like the pinnacle of it, really, besides maybe that 2014 game, which we won't talk about that. But the 2019 game was great. I mean, it was back and forth. We actually opened up a decent little bit of a lead on them, got up like 17, I think, and they came all the way back and tied it up. And then, we got down into pretty long field goal range there at the end. And they tried icing the guy 3 times. They tried like 3 different times to ice him, and he made the kick every single time. And then I thought, oh, watch him miss the one that counts. Nope, drilled the one that counts, walk-off fashion. I mean, that's the only field goal that actually ended the game, like truly ended the game in a walk-off fashion I've ever seen from Marshall, at home at least. I mean, it was exciting stuff. And honestly wish we could play Western Kentucky now in football more. I don't want to see some of these games we have coming up. They don't interest me. Some of these non-conference games we got coming up just don't bring much to the table, and that would bring a lot to the table because Marshall and Western just have great. They're just great, combatants with each other. They're just good that way. So this was a sensational game, just extremely memorable stuff. So that's my number 8.
Yeah, great pick. I would definitely put that on my list if I would have been at that game. However, I was not there. But that's one of those moments that I was talking about earlier where I do remember watching it. I remember it all unfolding, on TV and different things. And man, that was definitely exciting. And I would say that's probably my most fond memory of the Moonshine Throwdown.
Yeah.
I've got some real bad ones about the Moonshine Throwdown, but that was one of the good ones. And man, I agree with you. I really wish we could find a way to play them again in football.
Yeah.
That rivalry ran the entire conference. There was no other rivalry in the conference that came close to meaning as much as that particular game did. And I would much rather watch Marshall play Western Kentucky than Bowling Green. And maybe that's a
Yeah.
that's a future episode that we could probably talk about later on. What
Absolutely.
what are some games that we'd like to see? But definitely, I'd rather go watch Marshall play in Bowling Green, Kentucky, than I would in Ohio, and for a
Hmm.
lot of reasons. But we can talk about that later. Bowling Green has just got our number for some reason in Ohio.
Yeah.
But with that said, number 7 on my list today, this one is a pretty cool one. I was little, and I can remember that I was just really locked in for this particular game. 2006 was the year, November the 18th against UTEP. Marshall won in a very easy game, pretty much 49-21. UTEP was not very good whatsoever. But what made this game so fun was Ahmad Bradshaw ran
Hmm.
for the single game all record for rushing yards in one game. He had 261 rushing yards and 5 total touchdowns. And man, it was just a really cool experience. I can remember that whenever I'd go to these games, there'd be the little Geno's pizzas that you could buy, and I had it up there, man. I was screaming and shouting on the top of my lungs, hoping, praying that Ahmad would be able to do it in that game, and he had actually come close a couple of times. He was just that good of a running back.
Yeah.
But he broke it that day, and that was a really cool memory that I've got way back in the day, 2006 against UTEP.
I remember that game. I was there too, and that was probably probably Bradshaw's best game at Marshall, and he had a whole lot of good ones. Had a whole lot of good ones in the pros, but that was probably his best game at Marshall. He just absolutely ran all over UTEP, and it didn't matter. They could have had a couple extra guys on defense. They could have had 13, 14 guys. They couldn't have stopped him that day. I mean, he was absolutely just unstoppable. I think that was when they had Jordan Palmer at quarterback, Carson's little brother, I think.
Yes, you're
And
right.
see, it's a sickness. I mean, there's no reason that I know these random things. But anyways, there you go. So that was a good game, though. That was definitely one of the only real bright spots of that year. And I also remember a lot about that year with the UCF game, McConaughey coming to town and all that. Of course, we lost on like a game-winning field goal or whatever it was. But yeah, that was a good moment right there for sure. So looking at my number 7, and this is one that I alluded to earlier that you've already had on your list, the 2022 Myrtle Beach Bowl against UConn, 28-14 win. I mean, it's not because of the opponent. I mean, it's just the fact that it was a bowl game, and I had never been to a Marshall Bowl game, still haven't since then, and it was a phenomenal experience. Went down a couple day or two early and just got to go down to Myrtle on the beach and a week before Christmas and just kind of do some stuff around there and had a really, really good time. And that game was fun. I mean, there was a lot of green there. I mean, that whole side of the stadium was green. I mean, it was really well done. And I would love to get back to that bowl game again, quite frankly. I was hoping we'd get there in this past season if we had gotten eligible, but didn't happen. But hopefully in the future we can get there. Well, hopefully in the future we get to playoff. But I'll settle for the Myrtle Beach Bowl at first. But it was a great game. I mean, UConn, give them a lot of credit. I think that was Jim Morris' first year there, and he turned them around big time. I mean, granted, they were just 6-6 that year, but compared to where they had been, that was like being undefeated. I mean, they were absolutely just probably the worst program in the country the past 5 or so years. But he got there and he immediately turned them around, and now he's got a bigger job, whatever. So, I mean, they were a gritty team. Zion was the quarterback back then for them, and we got up big on them. We got up 28-0 on them in the third quarter, and they got it down to 28-14 and had a chance to make it 28-21 before we picked it off. So they really fought in that game. So that was a great memory for me. Not even just because of the game, but because of the whole experience, the whole trip, and everything was just fun.
Yeah, bowl games are always special. And like you said, I've got a lot of respect for UConn. I can remember them being really good back in their Big East days and
Yeah.
making a lot of noise nationally. And I don't follow UConn enough to know and understand the entire reason for the drop off and how drastic that it was. But it was good to be able to see them, get to a point where they were in a bowl game where they had a good season. And it was also great for us to ruin their entire season as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great. It was a great memory. I love the Myrtle Beach Bowl, and that's definitely going to be a special one always. Number 6 for me is what I would declare as the greatest atmosphere that I've ever been a part of in any Marshall football game in all of history that I've ever been to. And it's also the most heartbreaking Marshall game that I've ever been to in my entire life as well. It's one that, that keeps people up at night. It's one that we look back and we say, man, I just can't believe that we let that one slip through our hands the way that we did. And I don't even need to say it. All Marshall fans that if you've been around long enough, you know exactly what I'm talking about. 2010, September the 10th, Huntington, West Virginia. We saw West Virginia come to town. Marshall was ahead. They had the game in hand with just a couple of minutes to go, and it just fell apart right there at the end. 24-21 overtime final. Tragic game
Tragic.
overall. Tragic. But with that being said, even though it's not a fond memory, it's still a key memory for any Marshall fan.
Oh yeah.
And there was some good spots too. I can remember that there was a long touchdown pass. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head to who it was. It may have been an Emmanuel Span who caught it. I don't remember,
Dobson.
but was it Dobson? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so
Yep.
yeah, whoever scored that touchdown, I can remember that there was a pop at the Joan that I have never heard ever since.
Yeah.
There was, I mean, the roof blew off of the entire place. I remember I jumped into my dad's arms. We were hugging in, in the stands and jumping
Yeah.
around. It was electric. And yeah, I have never been to a Marshall game where it was that rowdy ever before and ever since. And man, I just hope one day that we can recreate that magic. We've come close. We've been very, very close on that. Maybe, maybe not, but that was just, it's a tough game to look back to. It's a tough game to reminisce on, but I do believe that it does deserve a spot in the top 10 of the games that I've been to because, like I said, I've never seen an atmosphere like that ever or before in Huntington.
Oh man, yeah, it was. I mean, it's like it's basically a core memory at this point. I mean, not for good necessarily, but yeah, it was. I mean, you're right. It was an absolutely just hard to even explain what that environment was like. I mean, it was tense. It was very tense, and that Dobson touchdown that he dropped the ball before he crossed the goal line, but that's okay. That was before a replay took off, so it counted. But he clearly did. But I remember that play very well. I remember the whole game very well. And if we had just closed that game out up 15 midway through the fourth quarter, we just closed that game out. It's number one on everybody's list. I mean, it just is. How could it not be? But it's unfortunate that it turned out the way that it did. But the atmosphere and that side of it was unmatched. It was great. No doubt. So on my number 6, this is one a little more recent, I guess. Well, no, not really, but it's in the 2020s. Put it that way. It was the COVID year of 2020. We're talking about the App State win when App State was ranked number 23 in the country. We beat them 17-7. Really good game, really good performance. That was Grant Wells' second game as a starter, right after he lit up Eastern Kentucky on ESPN a couple weeks before, whenever it was. And, we had not beaten a ranked team in, 17 years before that. 03 against Kansas State was the last time we beaten a ranked team. And this was a huge win. I mean, we really started that year hot. Obviously didn't end hot, but really got up to a ranking in a level that we hadn't been at in a long time. And this was the catalyst for that. I mean, we beat a really good App State team that year. I mean, they had just come off a 13-win season the year before. I mean, they're just loaded. At that point, they're a top. At that point, they're one of the probably 3 or 4 top group of 5 programs in the country, and we beat them really well. I mean, 17-7, only giving up 7 points to that team was kind of unfathomable at that point. They were really good, had an amazing O-line running game, and they were just good. And we really took it to them. And that was the first sign in which you knew how good that Marshall defense was that year. That 2020 defense was lethal, and they proved it in this game and then some. So that's my number 6, and it's not even because of the atmosphere, because obviously it was a COVID year, so there wasn't a whole lot of a crowd. But the game itself was great, and the meaning of it and the significance of it, not having beat a ranked team in so long, it was special. So that one ranks pretty high for me there.
Yeah, and I wasn't able to go to that game either, but man, that's a core memory for all Marshall fans.
Yeah.
And the play that lives in everyone's minds, and you've mentioned it
Yes.
already, is the
Yes.
strip right there, right as App
Peanut
State
punch.
was looking for a breakaway touchdown. Right, came right behind him and stripped it right out. Man, that was an awesome moment, and that was good stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, great pick overall. And man, I wish I could have gone to that game, because really, if you think about it too, I think that was not just really the catalyst for that season of Marshall, but that was their bringing the life back into the Joan after COVID had taken
Yeah.
place. I mean, crowd was finally back, different things. It wasn't full-fledged crowd. There was still the social distancing and different things, so it was a
Yeah.
very unique scene. But from that point forward, life started to seem to get back to normal. So yeah, that's a tremendous pick, and a game that I'll always remember very fondly. At number 5 for me, talking top 5 now, is a game that I went to on the road, October 22nd, 2022, in Harrisonburg, Virginia, as we
Mm-hmm.
played the James Madison Dukes. And I can remember that going into that game, Marshall was not picked really by anybody to win it. It was supposed to be a lopsided win overall, and Marshall went in and basically just completely, stopped everybody. They shut everybody up. And I remember that breakaway long touchdown run from Caleb Laburn,
Yeah.
that really shifted the momentum, and it was just a really fun experience. If you never are able to go to a James Madison game whenever Marshall's in town, I do recommend. If you've never been before, I recommend that you do go. That was kind of the beginning of what we call the battle for the gavel, the rivalry nowadays that we know. And it was just a really fun experience. James Madison fans were tremendous to us as well. Very kind, very thankful that we were there, and it was just a really cool atmosphere. I can remember, this is just a core memory of that game. They throw the streamers everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Whenever they score a touchdown, and I think that James Madison had taken a lead at some point, and somebody that was a James Madison fan threw a bunch of streamers into the Marshall section, and one of them hit me.
Yeah.
Well, whenever Marshall scored and kind of took the lead and took momentum back over, you best believe that I took that streamer that hit me and I threw it right back over at the James
Yeah.
Madison fans. And so, but it was fun. It was a great game. I think Laburn finished for 151 total rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. In Owen Porter, he had some key sacks as well. It was just a really good memory, and I'm really glad that I got to go to that game. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, looking back at it, you got to realize how many of those guys were on Indiana right now. I mean, you got to look at how many of those guys, Kurt Signetti. I mean, just you don't have to look any farther than that. Like that was what JMU had at that point, and that was their first year in the Sun Belt, first year in the FBS. But man, they were competitive immediately, and like everybody knew for years and years. I remember talking about it for a long time. If and when they ever went up to the big leagues, the FBS, they'd win immediately. Everybody knew that was. I mean, they're an FBS, so they were an FBS school living in an FCS world. That's what they were. There's a lot of programs like that. North Dakota State, Montana, all these guys, they're the same thing. And JMU immediately was competitive in year one in the Sun Belt, and we took it to them. Yeah, like you said, Laburn had a huge game. I remember a lot. So that was a great win for sure. So looking at my number 5 on my list now, this was probably the last really good, the last really big crowd we've had at the Joan in a while. And we're talking about 2023 against Virginia Tech at home. That was a really good win, 24-17. I mean, hadn't beaten Virginia Tech since like the 1940s or something like that, So like that's a very storied program, great tradition, great history, huge brand name in college football. We get them to come to the Joan and we beat them. I mean, 24-17, never even, well, I know that's not true. They did lead early, but then we took over after that and, pretty much had our way with them. And we got up 14 and then they managed to get down to 7, but we still won. But that was a really good atmosphere that day. I mean, they listed it as a sellout, but like not every seat was taken. But like that's the SeatGeek thing. I get it. But like it was a great crowd nonetheless. Still a really big crowd. Striped the stadium, looked awesome, especially on that press box side. The home side looked really good. I mean, the away side looked good too, but especially on the home side, it was really good. And I have that panoramic picture that they sold of it. I have it in my room over there. So yeah, it's awesome. We hadn't beaten Tech in a long, long time. We're not in a position where we get a lot of Power 5, Power 4 wins. So that was a really big deal. And that's the year after beating Notre Dame. So like, that was a big time win there. Great memory, great moment for the program. So that's my number 5. It was really good.
Yeah, that's a great pick. Such a great pick that I've got it at number 4. Yeah, that is a tremendous memory. Like you said, I've got the panoramic view in my office.
Yeah.
And so I look at that often, and it was just a really, really fun atmosphere, like you said, near sellout. And I really, really appreciate Virginia Tech because they weren't afraid to come and they weren't
Right.
afraid to play a team that may be smaller, and they never have. I mean, they went to Old Dominion, they've gone to Huntington, so I really appreciate that out of a program, and I don't think that they're any lesser than. In fact,
No.
I think that now under James Franklin, they're going to see more success than they've ever seen before. So that's
Oh, yeah.
exciting stuff for them. But I'm really glad that we were able to get the best of them. Of course, the big storyline, what would have made it perfect, it was nearly perfection, was if Grant Wells was the starting quarterback for
That's the
Virginia
only
Tech.
thing missing. Yeah.
The only thing that it was missing, I believe that was Drone's first ever start that he took against Marshall. But man, if Grant Wells could have just held out one more week, that would have just been the icing on the cake for a tremendous win in Huntington. So, yeah, great memory. Rasheen Ali was a monster, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns. Really carried the team pretty much, and the defense was stellar as well. So, that was a lot of fun, and the best recent memory crowd that
Yeah.
I can remember. We were loud. Stripe the stadium looked wonderful. It was an electric atmosphere, even if it was a noon game. So, yeah, I really enjoyed the Virginia Tech game, and it's my number 4 pick.
It was a great environment, great game. Yeah, that was Drones. Yeah, that was either his first or maybe first or second start, either way. And that ended up being a pretty good Tech team that year. They ended up winning 7 games, won a bowl game that year, and like they started really badly. I mean, they were 1-3 out of the gate, and they ended up doing pretty well that year. I mean, they beat some good teams, beat some good teams pretty badly too. So like that was a pretty good team that year. Although after that they kind of started going downhill again. Brent Pry got shown the door. So it is what it is. But that was a great game for Marshall. So looking at number 3, 4. Sorry, 4. So I almost got ahead of myself there. So my number 4 came from the 2013 season. Now this was probably our best season at that point in going on a decade. I mean, we hadn't had a season that good in about a decade. And this was a huge, huge game. It was winner take all for the Conference USA East Division on Black Friday, Marshall against East Carolina. East Carolina was loaded. We were loaded. I mean, it was a heavyweight fight. And man, we punched them and they were knocked out. 59-28. I mean, that was still, in my opinion, from top to bottom, based on how we played in all aspects of the game and based on the opponent and how good the opponent was, I think that's the best one of the Doc Holliday era, from top to bottom. I mean, ECU was a really good team that year, 10-win team. And the only games that they lost were all close games. They lost a close game to Virginia Tech. They lost a close game to, I think, Tulane on the road, but Tulane was good that year. And they lost to us by 3 touchdowns or whatever. So 4 touchdowns. So like, it was a huge win. I mean, we had never been in that position in Conference USA at that point. for competing, for a division title and competing for a conference title. We had never been there. We had never even been close, quite frankly. So at that point, that was a breakthrough season for the Herd. We end that year 10-4, lost the Conference USA title game to Rice, but unfortunately that sucked. But we did win the East, and we won the Military Bowl against Maryland, which was sensational. So that was a really good year, and then we all know what happened the next year. So that was really the start of what was to come. And this was the moment in which you knew Marshall they had arrived, and they were a Conference USA heavyweight for the foreseeable future because of this game right here. And we took it to them. Really good ECU team. I mean, one of their best teams probably ever, just based on win total. And we just beat them bad. So that's my number 4. I have very fond memories of that game.
Yeah, and I have fond memories of the entire 2013 season.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, for all the reasons you mentioned a second ago, that was kind of the coming out party of finally Marshall football is back.
Yeah.
We got a quarterback. We've got really solid receivers. We've got a great defense and all that. And correct me if I'm wrong too, but I believe that was East Carolina's final season as a member of the Conference USA, and the next year they went to the American. Yep. That makes it even better. Sending your rival out in that fashion with one of the best teams that they've ever had, and they still couldn't beat the ones that stayed. Man, that's good stuff. I like it.
Yeah.
So, great pick. But my number 3, this is one that I'm sure you're going to have very soon, maybe even at number 3 too. 2015, September 6th, Marshall versus Purdue, 41-31 win. And man, that was a lot of fun. That was a complete sellout. We talked about Virginia Tech being a near sellout. The Joan was packed for Purdue, and the crowd was in it, especially there at the end with the pick 6 that sealed the deal. That was, looking back, is just crazy. Michael Birdsong was our starting quarterback at the time, and we thought he'd win the Heisman Trophy after this game, but but that was an awesome game from start to finish. And again, having any time that there's a power conference team coming into the Joan, it's going to be a good crowd. And the Purdue fans, they showed up just as well too. And so that was just, looking back, that's another one of those core memories for all Marshall fans. You think back to the big wins in our entire history, and that's always got to be up there near the top.
Oh man, yeah, you're going to hear that coming up. I'm just giving you that much. You're going to hear that game from me. But that you couldn't have got. I mean, it couldn't have been more electric than it was for that whole game. And that's the thing, is like, I know we talked about Louisville game being the same way. This crowd didn't leave. This crowd was there until the end. I mean, it wasn't like a blowout where half the fans left at halftime. No, it wasn't that. And it was special. It was some special stuff. So that one's going to be on my list here shortly. We'll just say that much. But so looking at number 3 for me, and ironically, we're going right back to Greenville, North Carolina here. We're going back to another game against East Carolina. We're going 2011 against East Carolina. Marshall wins 34-27 in overtime. And for the longest time, this was my favorite game I had been to for the longest time. And it's not even because both teams were juggernauts. It's not because they were ranked, or it wasn't because of anything like that. I mean, literally the scene was both teams came in with 5 wins, needing a 6th win. That was the scene. And we came in at home. We won in very dramatic fashion. That was the game that Aaron Dobson had one of the greatest catches of all time. I mean, we've seen it. It is what it is. It's one of the best catches of all time. And it was such a dramatic game. I mean, so it was close the whole way through, back and forth. East Carolina's kicker made I remember this. This is like a core memory. He made a 57-yard and a 58-yard field goal in the same half. This guy had some freaking rocket fuel in his leg. But that was awesome. That, I mean, not because they scored, but because the guy made those long kicks consecutively. But, man, it was dramatic. I remember that 4th down in overtime. East Carolina needed to convert the 4th down to extend the game. I remember whoever their quarterback was, I think it was I can't remember his name now, but he was running out. Dominic Davis, I think who it was. He was running all over the field. We could not track him down. I was just holding my breath the whole time. And he just lunged it as far as he could, and Daryl Roberts picked it off, and the game was over. I mean, that was just it was the ultimate like roller coaster game. You had ups, you had downs, you had so many of both, and it could not have been more dramatic. And that was a big win because that was Doc's second year, and we had not gone to a bowl game yet, under his leadership. And this was our first time getting to bowl eligibility, and we ended up winning the 2011 Beef O'Brady's Bowl against FIU that year. That was a good win for us. And so this allowed it to happen. And this game, not because of necessarily how important it was, and it was important at the time, but looking back at it, it was just a great game with very compelling, exciting game.
Yeah, I was there. I remember that game. And I think that would probably be on my honorable mention list. Like I said, there's so many to pick from. It's hard to just say, all right, let's just do these couple.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, the catch, that's one of the greatest catches that we will ever see in all of football history. No look behind the back, just crazy catch. And it's just a shame it was from somebody that he who will not be named, and so we'll just leave it at that. We do wish him luck with wherever he lands. I think he's at Memphis now, but great memory, great game. I do remember that very, very vividly. You had mentioned this particular game at my number 2 a couple of times. 2013, December 27th, Annapolis, Maryland, at the Military Bowl. This is the first bowl game that I had ever attended in my entire life. My dad had actually gotten us tickets for my birthday. My birthday is right around that particular date, and so we had a great time. We were able to eat some great food. I remember we were downtown Annapolis, and we went to a place called Buddy's Seafood and Barbecue, and that place was a fantastic place to eat. If anybody's ever in Annapolis, Maryland, please look that place up. They had this all-you-can-eat buffet. They had, all-you-can-eat ribs and shrimp and all. I mean, I ate like a madman. So that was great to see them being able to tour the Naval Academy as well. That was awesome. Just walking around, thinking about all the history and all the great and awesome stuff. And then, just the stadium itself, really cool. Again, if you've never been to an Army, Navy, or any place like that before to see anything, I really recommend that you go because it is a bucket list college football experience. But to make matters even better, the game itself was a fantastic one. I'll never forget this too. This was really just an awesome touch. My favorite player, like I said at the start, is Byron Leftwich. He was an honorary captain for the game. I think he flipped the coin, and that was so cool to be able to see him come out there and with Cato and different things. And we played Maryland, of course, and so there was a gigantic following from Maryland. The entire Maryland side was just about full. Marshall was pretty full as well, and it was back and forth really all game long. And I can remember just like it was yesterday. This is probably one of, if not the best Marshall memory that I have in my entire life is the really the game sealing touchdown that Rakeem Cato threw to Gator Hoskins to kind of seal the deal with just a couple minutes left. I remember I had a video, and my dad he shouts out "ball game," and it was just really, really cool. So that was the first bowl game, like I said, I'd ever been to, and it was cool to see like the trophy presentation and stuff afterwards, and beating a power conference opponent. That was even better. So yeah, I mean, it's not number one on my list, but in all reality, it's probably number one in my heart. It's the game that I look back to and remember the most fondly out of every other game that I've ever been to. But there is one other game that I'm sure you're going to have on here just a second too that has to take the cake on paper. So anyway, that's my number 2 though.
Oh man, the Military Bowl was awesome. I mean, that was probably, it's definitely one of our 2 best bowl wins ever, along with the 99 Motor City Bowl against BYU. I think this and that are interchangeable, quite frankly. This was a great win. And like I said, that clinched our first 10-win season since 2002. So we're talking 11 years. So we had not had that kind of success. So it was huge. It was just huge for the program. And we know what happened afterwards. So it was a big win. And not to mention that was Maryland's last game in the ACC. They went to the Big Ten the next year, so it's like, bye, don't let the door hit you, that kind of thing. But yeah, awesome win. So my number two, it 2 and 1 are close, but I went one. One was a little bit better game, but two was the most probably personal moment that I've had as a Marshall football fan. 2014 Conference USA Championship, Louisiana Tech, 26-23. The game itself was kind of a dud. I'll be honest; it was not a very impressive game. We really did not play very well. Had several turnovers. It was in the rain. It was cold. It was miserable. But we stuck it out the whole game. Never gave up. It was close the whole time. But we just never could quite get over that hump until the last under 2 minutes to go. Cato, hits McManus there on that pass to the end zone, short touchdown pass. We go up 26-23. Then Louisiana Tech, though, they have a little bit of time left. They could get down into field goal range or what have you. But first play, Neville Hewitt picks it off, game over. And we were able to run the clock out, although Cato almost dropped the snap on the kneel down. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? But that would have been the most Marshall thing ever, put it that way. but yeah, the game itself was not terrific. It wasn't a crisply clean played game. But the moment afterwards, and everybody probably was partaking in this, going down on the field, doing the whole thing. The goalpost, they took it down for us. The whole goalpost came down. It went out to 3rd Avenue. I walked with it for a bit there, ended up getting a piece of it, from the mill that they cut it up. And then everybody on the field celebrating it was just cloud nine kind of stuff for a fan. And I had not been part of that before. I was way too young whenever they were dominating the MAC every year. I was just too young at that point. I didn't know anything I didn't even know about Marshall at that point. I was not really introduced until 2002. But yeah, this was a special moment. And that's the only time, like I said, the entire time that I've been a fan and I've been able to actually go to games that I've experienced this. 2020, we had it at home, lost to UAB. And then 2024 in the Sun Belt title game, it was on the road. So we have not had that opportunity since then. And man, I hope we get it again, but it will be hard to top this just because of how special it was. You knew that the program was back for sure, back. And it was special. Just simple as that. It was special.
Absolutely. That's my number one. There was no other Marshall game that I've ever been to that I think has been more important than that game.
Right.
That was who cares if the game was good or bad. I remember the self pass to Cato, and then all that nonsense that went on. I remember it being miserably cold.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't move my fingers, and I literally had to go to the bathroom and heat up because I could not move my hands. It was crazy. But man, to see them run out that clock and seal the deal, it was worth every single second. I didn't go out in the field. I stayed back in the stands and I watched it all. And it was just amazing. I saw the goalpost making its way out of the zone and like you said, down 3rd Avenue and different things. And yeah, it's things like that you never forget. And it's things like that you're always craving to see once again. And you mentioned it a second ago, of course, we'd been in the conference championship again in 2020 and lost, which, that was still, even if we won, it would have been a very strange year. In 2024, we won on the road, but I'm going to be honest with you, even at that, if we would have won at home, it would have been a great experience, but I don't think that it would have trumped 2020 or 2014.
No.
Because winning that conference championship, it was great. And I'm glad that we did it. And I'm so thankful for all of our guys that put in the work to do it. And I'm not trying to discredit anybody, but it felt like it really wasn't our team, if that makes sense. It was kind of a hollow victory because, just the very next day, all the drama began to unfold with Huff and him leaving. And, it was just a mess. So, and we knew going into the game, it was no secret. It was out there. Everybody had heard the rumors.
Oh yeah.
So, that win was not nearly as special. no matter what, even if it was at home, you can't really put a particular setting on that one and change the outcome. 2014 was just a special memory because you had Doc Holliday who loves Marshall. You have Rakeem Cato who loves Marshall, Tommy Schuler and Devin Johnson, and just all
Oh,
of these greats who work so hard for the city of Huntington, and to celebrate with the city of Huntington on that occasion. It doesn't get any more special than that. So yes, that is my number one game that I've ever been to in all of my Marshall fandom is the 2014 Conference USA Championship against Louisiana Tech.
oh man, it's that's a game where you'll sit on your porch when you're 80, swinging on the porch and telling us stories about it. That's kind of one of those games. I mean, it was special. I mean, and like I think that's a good point you brought up there about 2024. I loved winning that Sun Belt title. That was awesome. Loved it. But in a way, and I hate even thinking this or saying this, but in a way, that wasn't as much of a Marshall achievement as it was a Charles Huff achievement. I hate even saying that because for obvious reasons, but all those guys are going to be gone the next day, basically. And it's like all the coaches gone next day. This was to your point, this was a coaching staff, a team that was truly bought in to Marshall. Doc Holliday had inherited a pretty rough situation. He turned it around big time within 5 years. This was these seniors that were 4-year starters. I mean, this was huge. This was special. And the only reason I don't put it at number one is because I think my number one is a slightly better game, or maybe a lot better game. But the meaning of the Louisiana Tech game far outweighs anything else that I have on my list. But my number one, you had it earlier, Purdue, 2015, 10-point win, 41-31. It was just that's another game where you'll just sit on your rocking chair when you're old, telling your grandkids about it. That's kind of it. I mean, it's just I just have such vivid. I mean, it was like it was yesterday. Such vivid memories of that game. And after that, obviously you got a pick six to start the game, first play of the game. Then you got a pick six to seal the game in the last minute and a half. And I mean, it was the best from top to bottom, from start to finish, the best game I've been to as a Marshall fan, the best crowd from start to finish that I've been to as a Marshall fan, because you got to remember it like this. That 2010 game against WVU, or even that 2007 game against WVU, was huge crowd, slightly bigger crowds than the Purdue game was. But I think, for my money, the Purdue game is probably the most Marshall fans that have ever occupied the entire stadium for Marshall, because there was a ton of Mountaineer people there for those games. There was a section of Purdue people, but it was a small section. Everybody else was Marshall fans. Probably the most Marshall fans to ever watch Marshall play a football game, probably ever. And it was just epic. Absolutely epic. Purdue was not good, obviously, but that was the first time we'd ever gotten a Big Ten team to come to town, first time we'd ever beaten a Big Ten team, and it was just special. I mean, it was just huge. And that was, a Sunday afternoon game on national TV, hot as all get out, 90 degrees, I think. Oh my gosh, it was so hot, but it was worth sweating it out, literally, because it was a sensational game. Just couldn't have got much better. And I've never hugged more people in my life at a game than after that second pick six. I mean, oh my gosh, that pop, you talk about pops, man. As a pro wrestling fan talking about pops, that pop was huge after that second pick six. I mean, oh my gosh, I've got videos like from YouTube that I've liked in the past, and like you just hear it. It's just a humongous reaction, and it was so loud. I think that's the loudest moment I've ever experienced as a Marshall fan. And it was just everything. Like, you really couldn't have scripted it better, honestly. So that's my number one. And it's going to be, now, if I had been to Notre Dame, that'd probably be number one. But unfortunately, I was not there. But for the games I've been to, this is number one for me.
Yeah. And I'm with you too. Like, Notre Dame's probably, we talked about going, and man, I am so upset that we didn't.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, there's just no way. There's no way Marshall beats Notre Dame.
Right.
So let's just watch it at home, save a few $100 and have, man. looking back, what a fool I was. But hey, I agree with you, and I didn't really put that into consideration. You know, you're probably right. As far as fans being in the stands, I don't think there was ever or has ever been that many fans coming together to watch a Marshall football game than that particular game. So it's
Yeah,
a very interesting point that I did not consider before. That was an electric crowd, and the best news about that crowd is the fact that they went home happy.
yes,
And so that definitely, that also helps your atmosphere pretty well. So yes, absolutely a great pick. I don't think there is wrong picks with this,
no, no,
because like you said, like you mentioned a second ago, you never hugged so many people in your life.
yep, never,
And it's all about those personal memories about being a fan. You know, those big moments lead to so many other little things throughout the day, what you did before the game, what you do after the
yeah,
game, conversations you have on the way back to the house. Just
yep.
makes being a Marshall fan that much more special. And I'm glad that we are a fan of our great university.
I was going to say too. I met Chad Pennington before that game. I mean, I had never met Chad Pennington before that, and like that was memorable. I mean, of course it's memorable. It's Chad Pennington, but yeah, but yeah. I mean, that just all was tied into that game. I mean, it was just it was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, well, unless you got any other honorable mentions to add on to that, we'll go ahead and move into a little bit of transfer portal stuff here. I know you probably have this stuff up more than I do, but I know we've had several guys here recently announce they're going elsewhere. We've seen that. We've also picked up a lot of guys, and I think we're picking up a lot more guys uh, every day. And I know the portal window closes here in the next couple of days or so, but man, we're really hitting the ground running. I mean, and I'm impressed with who we're pulling in. But looking at a couple guys that we've lost in the portal, Nathan Totten was unexpected. Well, it's not that he was unexpected; it's the fact that he never put anything out there, and nobody even knew he was in the portal. But he goes to Virginia Tech with James Franklin. Good for him. He had an amazing year at the punter. You can't argue that. Lorcan Quinn. I mean, we knew he was gone. I mean, when you have that good of a season, you're gonna go somewhere. And I knew he was. I pretty much knew and figured he was going to go to a blue blood, but man, he went to Alabama. I'm just saying. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that. I mean, when has a Marshall player ever been able to transfer to Alabama? I mean, that just shows how good he is. We've had other guys go other places. Those are the two that I'm thinking of off the top of my head more so than anything else. But go ahead and get in a little bit of this, a little bit of more transfer portal news. I know you got a lot of this stuff way more accessible pulled up than I do. You're way more prepared than I am, but go ahead and throw in anything you want to add about the transfer portal and everything going on.
Well, yeah, like you mentioned, Lork and Quinn going to Alabama. That's very indicative of who he is. They're never going to have a kick six scenario ever again with him
No,
with him being the kicker. If he misses, he's going to miss long. That's what you want.
yeah,
So I do congratulate him, and I wish him nothing but the best. We're going to see him on Sundays. It's just that simple.
mm-hmm.
He is that good. He is one of the best kickers in the entire nation, and we were blessed to be able to just see him for one season. Nathan Totten, again, like you said, punter leaving, going to Virginia Tech. It was all quick. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not trying to speculate or say anything one way or the other, but it was a very fast move. He had mentioned that he's leaving, and then like a couple hours later, he had committed to Virginia Tech. I don't
Yeah,
know why or how. Not trying to speculate again, but he's a great kicker, and James Franklin definitely got himself a great punter that will do him some well. It's a lot of good. Um, Big one that I and that you had talked about previously again was Paul Hudson III.
yeah,
He's now a Washington State Cougar, which to me, I wish he would have just stuck it out here. I understand that he likely will have make a little bit more money because they have more funds and being able to do that than what we do.
yeah,
But I do believe that being at Marshall would have put him in a better position to succeed overall. However, you have to follow what you think is best. And that's exactly what he did. But with all of that being said, right now Marshall is sitting at 19 total commitments through the entire recruiting season. And right now, too, with that said, they are sitting at 10th in the conference, which is not ideal. To put that into perspective, though, the number one rank is Appalachian State, and they have 27 commits. and only one of those being a 4-star commit. So it's not necessarily, a huge difference. I know there's a lot of more recruiting to be done, and Marshall will likely, go up the list here and be closer towards the top. Not saying at the top, but closer towards the top than they are right now. Um, with that said, too, we've had a big couple of days with the recruiting or with the transfer portal, especially. Lots of defensive linemen, lots of offensive linemen, which is stuff you love to see. Again, they're never going to, wow you and all that stuff, but that those players are definitely your anchors, and they're going
Hmm.
to really set the tone for the entire season. And so, we're still waiting on a couple of different rumors to see exactly if they're true or not. As time goes on, it's boding well that they're not. The biggest one that we talked about last week is our quarterback position with Carlos Del Rio Wilson. We were a little bit unsure last week, but like I said, just as more time passes on, the more hopeful that you get. So hopefully he'll be able to run it back next year. And Trey, something that was very interesting to me, and you can kind of comment on this if you want to. Of course, it was first of all announced that the entire quarterback room for Marshall would be staying, and then we saw the announcement from Ja'Kai Long going into the transfer portal, and I saw some smaller offers that were made for him, and then really out of the blue, randomly, he just announces. I don't even know if they officially offered him or not. I don't know. I don't know the
Yeah.
details. I never saw anything official that he posted out. But he is now a Kentucky Wildcat, SEC, and that's pretty wild news. And so, what were your thoughts on that?
Very unexpected. I mean, very, very much shocking, quite frankly. I mean, it's not the fact that I don't think he's talented. It's just, if you essentially end the year third string at a Sun Belt school, it's kind of interesting to see you move on to an SEC school as a quarterback. I mean, so that immediately makes you wonder: Are they going to train? Are they going to switch his positions? Are they going to make him a running back? Are they going to make him a receiver? Are they going to whatever? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do, but maybe they'll keep him at quarterback. Maybe they'll just keep him as like a last ditch effort at quarterback. No disrespect, but like maybe that's what they'll do. I don't know. And it's good for him to end up somewhere like that. I mean, it's an SEC school, so I mean, you can't get much better than that. But I mean, it was definitely unexpected, and I don't really know, quite frankly. Maybe it's a walk-on thing. I don't know. I don't know any of the details, but like regardless, he's there, so they have to have something in mind. They had to have some reason to have gone out and got him. So whether that's to switch him to a running back or whatever, or whether it's to keep him as a backup quarterback, like a third string quarterback, whatever, they did it. So it is what it is. I mean, hopefully I'd like to see him succeed. I mean, he's a local kid and literally played at the high school I went to in Hurricane. So, I mean, I'd like to see him succeed, but it's also kind of surprising at the same time. So, and also I wanted to briefly touch on your point talking about App State being number one in the transfer portal for the Sun Belt. And I think a lot of that it's just solely because of the number of people you get. Obviously, I think if you break it down based on quote unquote quality players, we're probably right there with anybody else. But because we don't have as many players, it's kind of dropping us down a little bit. But at the same time, would you rather have more of your good returning players, or would you rather have to go out and get everybody new like we did last year? So
Right.
maybe App State's in that same position. That they have to go out and get 70 new players. I don't know. I don't envy that situation if that's what it is, but I don't worry about the talent level we're bringing in at all. I don't. I think we'll be fine. I think we're going to be very fine at the end of the day. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we have in 2026.
Right. And to just make that clear too, so Appalachian State, there's an average percentage ranking that you get whenever you're on. When they put all of your recruits together and they make your ranking. So the average rank, even though Appalachian State is number one in the Sun Belt because they have 27 commits, and the big thing right there that really separates them from everybody else is the 4-star recruit that they have gotten. But they're sitting at an 85.65. Okay. Going down to Marshall at number 10, they're sitting at 84.21. Okay,
Right.
and to just be clear too, that's almost the entire Sun Belt. You're sitting at 84 to 85. It is
Yeah.
anywhere in between there, and the only team that right now is below an 83, the lowest, you could probably guess it, Louisiana Monroe. They're
Yeah.
it may be they got 24 commits, by the way, too. I mean, they're really up there as far
Yeah.
as people committing to their school. It may be time for them to consider dropping down. They've only got 9 3-star recruits, and that means the remainder of their team is 2 or 1 stars. No, not even sniffing 4 or 5. So yeah, Marshall will get better, but they're not even that far off at this moment anyway.
No.
So yeah, that's it. That's good stuff. Yeah, but some key names, we've seen this last couple of days. Cole Funderburk is a 6'4", 240 defensive 40-pound defensive lineman from Wake Forest who has committed to Marshall. So he was somebody that was pretty highly sought after out of high school from Indiana, Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh, Virginia Tech, and Memphis, and also a few other Sun Belt schools. He was a top 150 edge rusher coming out of high school, and so he is now a member of the herd. And then another defensive lineman that we've got is Kenyatta Harge. I believe that's how you say his name. Forgive me. And he's on the shorter end, only 6 foot, 295 pounds though. And he is a player that is from Kentucky, and he'll be coming over. I would likely say that is a Brad Lambert connection that was
Yeah.
made. Chris Culver is a 6'2", 195-pound wide receiver from North Carolina who has come over. He is a junior, and he's got a couple of touches, but overall he had played this last season for none other than Chapel Bill, and so
Mm-hmm.
he is a part of the Thundering Herd now. Kelvin McBride is 6'3", 227 linebacker out of North Carolina State, and he had this is a connection that was made whenever Tony Gibson was there, just being able to have that overall connection. He was able to redshirt last year, and so he will be coming in as and he also had a medical year, so he'll come as a sophomore. And actually, no, he'll come as a freshman, as a redshirt freshman. And so we'll see how that pans out. Kendall Anderson's is 6'4", 210 defensive back from Morgan State. He is now a part of the herd. He ran a 4.58 40-yard dash, and he'll have 2 or 3 years of eligibility depending on his JUCO waiver. Um, Robbie Martin is a 6'3", 302 offensive lineman from West Virginia University. He is also a former Huntington Highlander,
Yeah.
and he originally had signed with NC State. I believe that, again, the Tony Gibson connection really helped him out. And but last season, Robbie went to West Virginia and now has come to the Herd. He was a first team All State here in West Virginia, number one ranked offensive lineman in the entire state, and had 29 offers from SEC schools, ACC, Big Ten, anywhere in the country he could have gone, really just about. So it's a big get. I'm glad that we got him on our side, that's for sure. And
Yeah.
it's always nice to see one of those really, really talented players coming back home. TJ Lester is a 5'10", 205 running back from West Georgia. He had 432 yards rushing on 101 carries last year for an average of 4.3 per carry, 6 touchdowns overall. So again, he's one of those guys that I think that he just needs an opportunity, and we'll see if he can be able to get that here at Marshall. Um, I think we briefly touched on this one last week. Eddie Pleasant III, we had mentioned he was coming to visit. He
Yeah.
now has officially signed with Marshall. He's a defensive back out of Buffalo. He started at Michigan State, was at Buffalo the last 2 seasons, and now he is a part of the Thundering Herd. Kendall Painters, a 6'6", 245 defensive lineman from Virginia Union. And he's somebody, again, that's a real small school, but he had a breakout season last year, and hopefully he'll get some good playing time, make a name for himself. Mike Williams is a 6'5", 275 defensive lineman from UTSA. And so he is now part of the herd, and I'm just trying to move quickly here because I want to make sure I don't waste anybody's time.
You're good.
Jaquez Joyner is a 6'4", 285 offensive lineman from UCF. He is now a part of the Thundering Herd. And lastly is Charles McCarthans. I think that's how you pronounce that. Forgive me again. 5'11", 185-pound defensive back from Buffalo as well. So he and the other gentleman that we mentioned a second ago, Eddie Pleasant III, are both Buffalo products, and they are now a part of Marshall. I believe that Charles, in particular, is somebody that has saw some very significant playing time. He started 12 games in 2024, and he played again most games in 2025. And so, yeah, but he redshirted for the 2025 season. That's really the big reason as to why. So he's got 2 more years of eligibility, and now he is a defensive back here at Marshall. So a lot of movement the last couple of days, but that's kind of your update on some guys and some names that we're getting. So, Tony Gibson's getting some things in motion, got a couple running backs now, got a couple wide receivers now as well. And, just slowly and kind of quietly building a nice squad here, and we are still waiting on some more updates. Of course, we've had a number of young men visit Marshall the last couple of
Mm-hmm.
days and couple of weeks. So we will see what decisions all of them make in the coming weeks ahead, and we'll try and update everybody as we get those updates.
Yeah, man. I like what they're doing. I mean, I like who they're bringing in. Got a good buddy of mine that lives down in Charlotte. He's also a UNC fan, big Marshall fan, but he's a UNC fan, and he really thinks Culver can be really good for us. He seems to think, he has very much untapped potential and had it even in the ACC. And he seems to think he'll have a really good year, or hopefully a couple years. So I like what we're doing. I mean, we're hitting areas that we need to hit, like personnel wise. We're going to have a totally different defensive scheme, maybe. I mean, we're going to have a new defensive line, and we lost a lot of those guys in the portal. We're bringing in a lot of guys. I mean, we need big bodies down there. Need a lot more of them, and we're hitting a lot of our needs. So that's all you can ask for at this point. I mean, our quality. I think we're bringing in some quality guys. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else they can do in the next 2 or 3 days, however long the portal lasts, and I think we'll be in good shape. And I think Gibson's hitting the ground running. I really do. I think we're going to be a lot better. But with that, we have come to the end of this very cool episode that I was really looking forward to doing with our top 10 games we've been to. I always like hearing fans' perspectives on that, the games they've been to, and just seeing how they stack up with mine and how they compare to mine. And we had a lot of the same ones as I imagined we would, but you had some different games that you had been to that I hadn't been to, and vice versa. So it's just a cool little dynamic there. And the portal stuff, about our next episode, we'll probably have a lot more to talk about there as well, I'm sure. But yeah, so unless you got anything else to add, man, we'll go ahead and close out of here, and we'll move on to the next one.
Yeah, go Herd.
Go Herd. Y'all have a great evening. See you later.